Yay, we made it. All right. Whew, we're all here. Great. So good morning. Thanks to everyone, or afternoon. Thanks so much for joining us in this session. My name is Marina Psaros. I'm Unity's head of sustainability. And in this conversation, we're going to be talking about engaging players on the issue of climate change. If you're here now, you already know that climate change is an existential issue and that we all have a huge opportunity in this community to be empowering and educating and inspiring billions of players on taking climate action. Over the past two and a half years, there's been a lot of really great projects that have come up and that are operational now. And today we're going to be talking about 3 of those projects. So we're going to be going in a round robin format. I'm going to be monitoring the Q&A, so please just pop your questions into there if you have any. And so with that, we've got a short amount of time, so let's get into it. Let's do a quick round of introductions. Yennie, how about we start with you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Yennie. I lead social impact at Niantic, and I use she, her pronouns. So we specifically are focused on building games and applications that are focused on augmented reality and encouraging people to explore the world together. So the majority of my job is really working with nonprofits and foundations to figure out ways in which we can engage our players in the real world for good. And I will turn my camera off briefly because I got locked out of the computer and I just need to grab my fob. That's me.
Great. All right, well, I guess our technical issues are just going to continue. We'll just roll with it. Jen, you want to say hi?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Carman. I am a postdoctoral associate at the Yale program on climate change communication, and I will be transitioning to a full-time position as the deputy research manager here in September. And I'm actually going to give a little extra background to make the connection between my work and all of yours, because YPCCC conducts scientific research to advance climate change communication. And the reason that communication is important is because it is necessary for building what's called political will, or coordinated public demand for action on climate change. Because wide-scale climate action isn't going to happen without it. And the first step is that people need to be engaged on climate change, and that's where communication comes in. And so we're thinking about gamers as an audience for this communication. And so I'm going to share a couple of slides real quick, if that's okay, just to orient you all to what it is that we do. And so let me, fingers crossed always when with screen sharing. And so, okay. And so one of the challenges of communication is that climate change is often seen as an abstract and distant problem because it's a global problem. And that means that people don't always make the connection between this global problem and concrete impacts in their day-to-day lives. And what's more, when people do think about these concrete impacts, they tend to be things like this image of polar bear on melting ice, that is impacts that are far away and not related to us. And that's why we in climate communications talk about what are called trusted messengers who can help people connect climate change to their own lives. For example, weather forecasters are often trusted messengers. So when they say something like, this local heat wave is related to climate change, their audience is more likely to make that connection too. And so trusted messengers can include close by people like friends and family, but they can also include public leaders and other figures who are admired and share their audience's values. And so this was the background logic for this study that I'll be talking about in my remarks today about video gamers and their attitudes toward climate change, because we were thinking about games and the gaming community as potential trusted messengers for talking about climate change. And for this study, we wanted to understand where gamers are right now as an audience.
That's great. Thank you for that brief framing. I know it's been so exciting to work with Yale on this study. Just as a little bit of brag on you, Yale has been doing this research for over a decade that looks at people's beliefs, thoughts, and attitudes around climate change. And so we thought that it would be really great to do this cross-segmentation with gamers. There are billions of gamers, and we want to know, to your point, we all have the opportunity in this community to really drive action. And the games that people play are often trusted messengers themselves, right? So developers and the studios, they are part of that trusted messenger community. And as Yennie talked about being able to play together, that, and just to connect it to what you said about your friends also being trusted messengers. That is really an ecosystem where I think that we can take some, that players can take some real action. And so, Victoria, I want to bring you in. Please give us an intro.
Hi, I'm Victoria Reiser. I am a co-founder and CEO of Sankari Studios. And tying to all of you, we started this studio specifically to create games that have tangible real-world outcomes. Our first game is about climate. It's called Katoa, means everyone. And it really is, we were going, a little background, we were looking at like, how can we build something that is as fun and engaging as games that people want to play, but that really also teaches you about what is happening, connects you to it, connects you in regards to empathy and feelings, but then also build a bridge into the real world and have you, the gamer, have impact in the real world and really kind of democratize what it means to mitigate climate change. So that's where we come in.
That's very exciting. Awesome. Well, I know that you've each done a lot of work gathering data, and that's one of the areas that I really wanted to drill into in this conversation, is I think that the opportunity is pretty well known and out there, and in your own ways, you've each been gathering a lot of data about what works and what doesn't. You've been forming hypotheses, and I think that sharing that with this community is it's really important. So I think, let's see, who should we start with? Yennie, do you want to start with what you've learned from Niantic?
Sure, yeah. I'm going to share a couple of slides. Hopefully folks can see that. Okay, we'll go into slideshow mode. So yeah, like I mentioned before, we're really focused on encouraging people to explore the world together. This picture is a really good image of what we're talking about. Obviously, this doesn't work when COVID is rampant, but it really is kind of our ideal mode, is to encourage people to be together in ways that feel safe. But the question that we've been asking ourselves is, how can we use this technology, so these games, which include games like Pokemon Go, Pikmin Bloom, and Ingress, to inspire people to take action? And that's a little bit a part of my job. And every year we run a campaign that we call Sustainability Campaign. And it's really focused on engaging players in real world action that are tied to our games. So I'll talk a little bit about a few of the ways that we've done that in kind of a rapid fire version. The very first way that we've done this is to partner up with hyper-local nonprofits all over the globe who are focused on cleanup efforts. And we've connected our players to those nonprofits. And then based on the engagement, so the number of players that actually attend these cleanup events and help in the efforts, we unlock in-game rewards for those players after the campaigns have happened. We've hosted hundreds of these all around the world. Majority of them happened pre-COVID, of course, and these are just a few of the pictures of folks kind of working together, or in the lower left image, this is someone working during COVID and really thinking about, how can we look at our immediate surroundings to help contribute to sustainability and the fight against climate change. And then here are a couple of other ways in which we've engaged folks over the years. The image here on the left is actually a campaign that we've run with the National Park Foundation during National Parks Week. So that happens to fall during our sustainability campaign. And we utilize our in-game advertisements, they're called geofence billboards, to engage players in specific locations where the National Park Foundation is interested in engaging possibly new donors, new park attendees, that sort of thing. And so far it's been really successful. The latest campaign had a really high number of donors, and 92% of those donors were new to the National Park Foundation. So we're really focused on kind of connecting our players to giving opportunities and sustainability efforts that are tied to specific partners. The image you see here on the middle portion of your screen is an avatar item in Pokemon Go. It's a little bit hard to see in this picture, but the shirt is focused on sustainability. And we asked all of our players who were interested in showing their support for sustainability efforts to kind of don this gear. Which is kind of fun and unique and certainly more sustainable than actually purchasing an actual t-shirt. And then lastly, the image on the right depicts how we most recently engaged players. We have live events every month in which players come together and play games together in the real world. So we said for every 5 kilometers that a player moves, we will plant 1 tree with our partner Ecosia. That was really neat because we literally tied the physical action of players to planting trees, and it was very successful. We just hit our 300,000 mark in terms of planting 300,000 trees alongside Ecosia. In addition, we're also planting 1,000 additional trees for those players who physically aren't able to move those 5 kilometers. So that was really exciting. And then lastly, really amplifying the message. So it takes a lot of effort and energy for these nonprofits to work on sustainability campaigns. And I think organizations like Niantic can kind of come in with some of the social pizzazz that we have with brands like Pokemon Go and Pikmin Bloom and really help bolster that effort. And it goes a long way. So I'm certainly one that's still working on amplifying all of the good that we do, but I do think it makes a big difference. So talking about our work, and this talk is yet another example of that. So that's it for me. I'm going to stop sharing here. That was a little bit of a rapid fire movement, but that's a kind of synopsis on how we really physically engage our players in the real world to try and combat climate change.
That's amazing. I know the work of the IGDA Climate Special Interest Group is interested in looking at with them, and actually the Playing for the Planet Alliance are both really interested in looking at the efficacy of different kinds of calls to action. And I am amazed by that statistic that it was 92% new donors to National Park Service. Was that within that? So that was within Pokemon Go?
Yeah, so that's right now that geofence billboard campaign is available in Pokemon Go. We're working to add in other elements to that and kind of across our game suite. And the idea with it is really how can we focus on specific groups, right, in specific locations. So if there's a hyper-local nonprofit that's looking to amp up their beach cleanups, for example, they can then directly connect to those players who are in that physicality and are interested in connecting with them.
That's very cool. There's a game called Ahika Rangers, and they're also doing some behavioral transference in this area. It's actually specifically around citizen science calls to action, so identifying endangered species or this kind of work, and it's really exciting. So maybe potential opportunity for cross-pollination of ideas there.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Okay, so I know that your titles are all live, and that's really exciting, and they were live before you wanted to be able to put sustainability focused content in them. And Victoria took a very different approach, which is your game was purpose built in order to increase activation. So do you want to take us through your thinking and your planning and your game? You are on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so we started truly kind of think 10 years back where we thought, my gosh, we see where gaming is going, and wouldn't it be amazing if we built something from the get-go that was purely focused on this kind of like tangible real world outcome. So I'm going to share, should I share my slides maybe quickly, and just so you can see kind of what it looks like, feels like. Here we go. I'm going to go into play mode, which should help. Can you see the full screen?
Yep.
Oh, sorry about that. So our game, really involves everyone, because we believe, again, like democratizing and having people have impact. So what we realized was that, sorry about that, that actually consumers really want to help, but they don't know how. So our research showed us, the immense amount of people that are really worried about climate change. And so it falls straight into also, the demographic of gaming that we then started looking at. So our game very specifically builds ecosystems around the world where Great Barrier Reef. As a player, you literally just play. You earn impact currency, and then we bring sponsors, foundations to the, to our platform that underwrite your points. And then you as the player have the opportunity to give that money to the organizations that we have pre-vetted and that we really kind of put together a whole impact report on like who has the most impact on oceans, on rainforests, on where do we have to unite these nonprofits to also have, as much impact as we can. So the game itself also was really built to make it like fun, rewarding, but also very educational. That was a concern we had where like, will players be turned off because of the educational part? We just completed our first, rounds of play testing, and funnily enough, they wanted more education. They were super excited about what they were learning while they were playing. We then built these really cool bridges into the real world. And that is, you play together, you build, these worlds together, but then you also see your impact in the real world together. So we have a whole film team that goes out and shows the before and afters. You can see, when you've played in the Great Barrier Reef, for example, take planting seagrass, we will then show you what happened because of what you were doing in the game. So because of the money you've raised, you actually were able to plant, 100 hectares of seagrass in the Great Barrier Reef. Shows you then the before and after. Later, we go in and really connect the dots there. Why now? And this is what we talked about with the panel. It really is, climate is becoming very much, it's on everyone's minds. We're seeing the repercussions already, but now we have the added benefit of really having corporations and brands jumping on the bandwagon. And that's where we see a lot of actions to support and dollar support that we're bringing to the game, and then again being given to these NGOs or here just a little bit where we are going on our roadmap with oceans. Here are some of the nations that we're supporting from the get-go. But then in 2023, we're expanding gameplay to rainforests and green cities. So that is how we're tackling. That's kind of a little bit more about our game and research. We have a lot of research we can chat about later. I know Marina has some good questions there.
Great, thank you so much. It's such a different approach than what Niantic has taken, and I think, looking at these. So when is your game launching again, Victoria?
So soft launching in October, and then hard launch in February 2023.
Okay. And what's really exciting for me about what you're doing is that you have a lot of market research. So you took a real research-based approach to this game development, and you'll be able to test those, those theories that you had, and really see what is working and not, and where you may have made assumptions that are incorrect and where you were right in some areas. And taking that evidence-based approach, I think is a really exciting area that a lot of game studios and developers and the education community can really lean into. And that's why the work that we've done with Yale is so exciting for me. And Yale's coming out with this study very soon, and we're going to get a little teaser of some of those results today. And I think that that's going to be a real benefit to our community as we think about how to drive the most impact. Jen, do you want to take us through your slides? Some of the early results of that study?
Sure thing. So let me share my screen again. I hope everybody likes data, because that's what I'm going to be talking through. So first, to give you all some background, as Marina mentioned earlier, at YPCCC, we run a biannual study in partnership with George Mason University called Climate Change in the American Mind, which measures Americans' beliefs, attitudes, behaviors, and policy support regarding climate change. And this study is actually well known within the climate community and has been running since 2008. And building on this work, we partnered with Unity to develop a new survey to collect similar information from video gamers across the US, and that's what I'll be presenting results on today. And this study was conducted in early June of this year and collected data from 2,034 US residents who play video games. And our study used a representative sample of video gamers in the US, so it ended up being quite diverse on gender and race and ethnicity and education and even age, although the sample is younger than the US overall, not surprisingly, which may not be a surprise to those of you who work in the industry, but was very cool for us. And we asked a lot of the same questions, so we asked in the Climate Change in the American Mind study, so I'll also be providing comparison data where it's available. And so because we were able to compare this data, one area we explored is where video gamers are similar to Americans overall on climate attitudes. And on a lot of the major basic beliefs, they actually are very similar. 73% of video gamers think that global warming is happening. 56% think that it's primarily caused by human activities. These are basically bang on exactly the same as the American public generally. And we also, similar to what Victoria actually mentioned finding, is that we found that 70% of video gamers say that they are somewhat or very worried about global warming, which is also very similar to the public overall. And 48% say that they've actually personally experienced the effect of global warming. But there are also several areas where video gamers are different from Americans overall. And one that's interesting is in terms of the percentage who think that global warming is harming people in the US right now. Even though half of gamers say that they've been affected by global warming, only 33% or about a third say that global warming is actually harming people in the US right now, which is much lower than US adults overall. However, on a lot of other measures, gamers are much higher. For example, when it comes to measuring understanding of what other people are doing related to global warming, video gamers are much higher. 61% said that they perceive that global warming is important to their family and friends. It's important to reduce it, compared with only 43% of adults overall in the US. And 53% of video gamers say that they see family and friends actually making efforts to reduce global warming. And so both of these results are really important because they represent what are called social norms, which some of you may be familiar with. They're what we see the people around us valuing and actually doing. And these are important predictors of our behavior. And these differences in perceived social norms are notable because another area where we found differences was in terms of actual willingness to engage in behavior, and particularly political behavior, which was much higher, like way higher among video gamers compared to the US overall. So this is a list of behaviors and people's willingness to doing them. 59% of US video gamers said that they're willing to sign a petition, which is about the same as adults overall in the US. But when it comes to contacting elected officials, donating money to organizations working on global warming, meeting with an elected official, or volunteering time to organizations working on global warming, you can see that video gamers are much more willing to engage in all of these activities. And two that I really wanted to call attention to are these last two, which is willingness to personally participate in nonviolent civil disobedience, such as protests or sit-ins. As you can see, 38% of video gamers said that they're willing to engage in this behavior, whereas only 15% of Americans overall say that they're willing to do this. And 52% say that they're willing to or are already participating in a campaign to urge elected officials to take action, compared with only 28% of Americans overall. And these are especially exciting because these are the ones that are really like the most engaged that people can be in terms of taking action, and especially political action. They're the high commitment kind of actions. And so video gamers kind of blow everybody else out of the water in terms of their willingness to do these behaviors. And finally, we asked questions specifically about how video gamers are engaging with content related to global warming through gaming. And so this is actually, I think, influenced by some of the work that Yennie is doing, because 22% said that they saw or heard content related to global warming in the past year, either as part of a game itself or through a gaming stream. And moreover, we found that 13% of respondents, that is more than half of the respondents who said that they actually saw content, said that they took action based on what they learned. We also asked about gamers' perceptions of the gaming industry and its responsibility to act. And we found that 56% think that the gaming industry has responsibility to take action on global warming and should do what it can to reduce its carbon emissions. And only 35% think it doesn't. So that's where we are right now. It's just a taste of these findings, and the full results will be coming out in the next few weeks.
I'm on fire for the full results of that study. I am so excited about how we can start operationalizing some of those learnings. It's really great. All right, I can't believe that our time is already almost over here. Looks like we've got about 3 minutes left. I had a million more questions, but I will just ask one, which is I'm curious, you've each been basically in the act of creating something new, right? Be it a game, a call to action, this new thought leadership. And I would love to hear just one thing about either something that you didn't know beforehand or, an area where you're failing forward, i.e. something didn't work that you thought would, and now you're trying something new. So Yennie, I'll pick on you first.
Sure, yeah. So one of our sustainability campaigns that happened last year in 2021 was very much focused on individual action. So we asked players to individually commit to compost, to clean up their neighborhood. There was a whole slew of things. And the reason was because we didn't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable about meeting outside with others. But it wasn't that successful, actually. And what was really interesting and frankly helped reinforce our mission of encouraging people to explore the world together was that people were much more likely to go out and participate in one of our cleanup events or attend a community event where they were moving 5 kilometers to then plant a tree than they were to do something on their own. And I think the lesson there was that humans like to be together, and they're even more inspired when they're together. So we are refocusing on group gatherings and events when it feels safe to do so, of course.
That's really interesting. Adam May, who produced a couple of amazing VR experiences, he and I are also doing some research into individual versus like group action. So we'd love to share our findings and follow up offline. That's super interesting. Victoria, how about you?
So it was really interesting to us when we went through play testing because we were also testing our marketing messaging. And the biggest issue players had was believing that there could be a game out there where you could play and good things would happen in the real world. It was huge skepticism around it. And we're like, wow, this is interesting because, this is the whole reason we built this. So we had to go back and actually change our messaging so it wasn't so hopeful. It was kind of more come and find out versus here's what you're doing. Because again, people are like, well, how do I know? How will I be able to measure? How will I see? And it'll be really fun to actually release this and have people go through and actually experience it and realize, the A to Z is really connected and you do see your impact. You have like a direct line to that.
That's a really important finding, I think. If people aren't taking action in their own community, if it is something like, donating to a coral reef that they've never seen, then how can we all make sure that that people actually see the impact of what they're doing? So I think that's a great learning for anyone who is not doing community-based action, but looking to go further and influence something that's not where someone can directly witness it for themselves. Thank you. Jen, how about you?
So I think that what was most interesting to me about this was this particular work was kind of busting all stereotypes, not just about gamers, but about environmentalists. I think that there can be a popular narrative that, video gamers are white guys who don't care about anything but games. And our study shows that that's really not the case, that is a broad, diverse group of people who care about climate change quite a bit and are very willing to act on it. But also, it also shows that the flip side is that environmentalists aren't just people who spend all their summers camping or who, hate television and popular culture. That there is a contingent of people within the video gaming community who care about this and want to get involved. And I think that the other big surprise for us was just how engaged the gaming community already is on this topic. But to build on what Victoria was just talking about, one thing I do want to emphasize especially is that, we found that there's a lot of willingness to engage in behaviors among the gaming community, but that isn't necessarily the same as actually taking action. And that bridging that gap between being willing to take action and actually taking action is one of the really big challenges, I think, going forward.
Amazing. I think we're just gonna wrap it there. That was you did my job. I don't have to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for doing that for me. So that was fantastic actually. And I know that we are at time. So I just want to say thank you to the Games for Change Festival and thank you to each of you. And thanks for everyone here for joining us. I appreciate the conversation and the thought leadership that you're providing. Thanks everyone.